Imagine falling in love with someone who don't want to be recognized as themselves. What would you do when you uncover the many secrets kept to hide the identity of the one person you love? Today's story is about Daniel Rowan, who was once the darling of the literary world, celebrated for his poignant stories that captured the essence of human emotion. However, the fervor that used to fuel his creativity had dimmed to a flicker. In recent years, his words had abandoned him, leaving an empty space where inspiration and passion once thrived. Faced with growing anxiety and the relentless demand for his next bestseller, Daniel could no longer bear the weight of expectation. It gnawed at him, each blank page a reminder of his inadequacy. In search of solace, Daniel made an impulsive decision to disappear from the whirlwind of city life and the pressures of fame. He retreated to a small, quiet town, hoping the serene surroundings would rekindle his creative spark. Here he adopted a new name, an identity stripped of accolades and recognition. The anonymity brought him a sense of freedom. He could be just another face in the crowd. His sanctuary became the local library, a haven filled with the comforting scent of old books and the stillness that enveloped him like a warm embrace. In the hushed corners between the towering shelves, he found solace in reading, not just for escapism, but as a way to reconnect with language itself. Each word he absorbed reminded him of the stories yet to be told. It was in this refuge of silence that Daniel first laid eyes on Sophie, the reserved librarian who seemed to float among the stacks, her presence as enchanting as the pages she tended to. Unlike most people, Sophie was more comfortable with literature than casual conversation. She often spoke in quotes, her speech laced with references that reflected her profound connection to books. Daniel found her intriguing, a stark contrast to the noise he had fled. As days turned into weeks, Daniel's admiration blossomed quietly. It was not long before he felt compelled to reach out to her, not directly, but through the notes he began leaving in returned books, poetic snippets filled with emotions he could no longer articulate aloud. With each note, Daniel felt a renewed sense of purpose, unaware that these expressions would lead him down an unexpected path of connection and discovery. The small town embraced Daniel with an unexpected warmth, a stark contrast to the cold scrutiny he had grown accustomed to. As he wandered its quiet streets, he felt the weight of expectation lift, replaced by the gentle rhythm of everyday life. The houses, painted in soft hues, lined the streets like pages from a cherished novel, and the natural beauty of the surrounding hills whispered promises of renewal. Finding his way to the library was almost instinctual. It stood like a sanctuary amid the bustle, its facade adorned with creeping ivy and weathered stone steps that beckoned him closer. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of aged paper, and the hushed whispers of visitors created a peaceful symphony that allowed thoughts to unfurl without interruption. Here, he could be just another visitor, no accolades pinned to his chest, no renowned author seeking refuge. Daniel soon discovered the joy of losing himself among the stacks. He roamed freely, rediscovering literary treasures long forgotten. With each book he held, memories of his own work flooded back, along with the painful realization that those words no longer flowed from him. Instead of feeling discouraged, he found comfort in reading others' stories, allowing their voices to fill the silence that echoed in his mind. In this idyllic setting, Daniel began slipping into a routine. He arrived at the library each day as if reporting for duty, eagerly digging into different genres that sparked his imagination or stirred dormant emotions within him. It was during one of these visits that he first noticed Sophie. Her presence was quiet yet magnetic as she meticulously organized books and offered gentle guidance to patrons who sought her expertise. As days passed, he began to appreciate her subtle habits, the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear while lost in thought, or how she smiled softly whenever someone expressed gratitude for her help. Sophie's uniqueness captured his attention. Her love for literature seemed to resonate deeply with his own experiences. By adopting a new name and embracing anonymity, Daniel felt liberated from the shadows of his past, surrounded by an atmosphere that encouraged introspection rather than judgment. It was in this newfound sanctuary that profound feelings began to stir within him, a yearning not just for words on a page, but for connection with someone who understood the language of silence and stories alike. Sophie stepped lightly among the shelves, her love for literature evident in every meticulous action. She was like a ghost among the books, quiet yet distinctly present, her soft footsteps barely disrupting the peaceful atmosphere of the library. With her glasses perched on her nose and a book often cradled in her arms, Sophie exuded an aura of tranquility that drew people toward her, even if she preferred to keep them at a distance. Where others engaged in small talk and casual interactions, Sophie spoke in quotes from her favorite authors, stringing together passages that resonated with her thoughts and feelings. It wasn't mere pedantry, it was a reflection of how deeply embedded literature was in her soul. Whether assisting patrons or shelving new arrivals, her dialogue felt less like conversation and more akin to poetry, a lyrical dance of words that allowed her to connect without revealing too much of herself. During his visits to the library, Daniel found himself mesmerized by Sophie's unique way of communicating. Their interactions, a gentle back and forth comprised mostly of literary citations, formed an understated bond that transcended ordinary discourse. He delighted in discovering which quote she would choose to articulate her thoughts on various topics. Each selection felt both deliberate and profound. With every subtle smile or nod of acknowledgement from Sophie, Daniel sensed a connection building, a dynamic born not just from their love for books, but also from their somewhat shared isolation. As days turned into weeks, what struck him most about Sophie was how she seemed simultaneously vibrant and untouched by the world outside the library's doors. Her affinity for solitude mirrored his own struggles, and much like he had become lost in his writing blocks, she appeared to have retreated into the safety of literary realms where reality couldn't intrude. Amidst this tranquil environment, Daniel began to view Sophie as not only a librarian, but also a muse whose insights resonated with his own heartaches and aspirations. As he observed her contemplating a passage or slightly tilting her head while listening intently to another patron, his admiration deepened. In those moments filled with quiet understanding, he could feel their worlds quietly colliding, a prelude to something both beautiful and complicated waiting just beyond the horizon of their enchanting exchanges among the shelves. As Daniel's admiration for Sophie deepened, he found himself yearning to express his thoughts but hesitated to reveal his identity. This internal struggle fueled a creative spark he had long thought extinguished. Sitting at a small table in the library, surrounded by the comforting stillness of whispered pages, he began to write not as a famed author, but as a man yearning for connection. He carefully crafted anonymous notes, slipping them into the margins of the books he returned, each one infused with poetic insights and personal reflections. These notes became his secret lifeline, a way to reach out to Sophie without the weight of his past looming over him. He poured his heart onto the paper, writing about moments that stirred him, the beauty of an old tree outside the library, the quiet laughter of children playing nearby, and musings on love and solitude. Each note held fragments of his soul, delicate expressions that conveyed much more than mere words could capture. As he slipped the notes into the books, folding them neatly so they wouldn't be noticed by others, he felt a rush of exhilaration mixed with vulnerability. There was something electrifying about sharing these intimate thoughts with someone who seemed to understand him on a deeper level, even if she didn't know his true identity. In those moments, anonymity became his shield and sword. It allowed him to bear parts of himself he had long buried. To his surprise, Sophie began to respond. Each time Daniel returned to the library, he would scan the shelves for the familiar titles where he had left messages, eager to discover her replies. She would write in the margins using her own elegant script, sometimes quoting authors he admired, other times crafting her own poetic reflections inspired by his notes. Her responses felt like beams of light piercing through the fog of isolation they both inhabited. This burgeoning exchange became a cherished ritual for Daniel. He found himself looking forward to their interactions more than anything else in his day-to-day life. Each note exchanged not only sparked a connection, but also ignited an unspoken romance that grew richer with every turn of phrase. It was within this literary dance that Daniel felt truly alive again, invigorated by the possibility of love that transcended mere written words and existed somewhere in the spaces between their shared thoughts. The first time Sophie discovered Daniel's note, it felt like a soft echo of a thought she had never dared to voice herself. As she opened the borrowed book and saw his elegant handwriting nestled between the lines, a rush of excitement coursed through her. The words seemed to leap off the page, resonating with her heart in a way that felt both familiar and exhilarating. It was as if someone had seen into her soul, understanding her unspoken yearnings and fears. With each note Daniel left, Sophie found herself drawn deeper into this mysterious exchange. She would spend quiet evenings poring over the margins, considering how best to respond. Each reply required careful thought as she chose quotes that encapsulated her feelings, peppered with her own musings on life and love. The notes became treasures she eagerly anticipated, intimate conversations hidden within the rows of books, away from prying eyes. As their correspondence flourished, an enchanting rhythm developed between them. Sophie's responses soon matched the tenderness of Daniel's original notes, a dance of words that felt effortless yet profound. She reveled in the freedom these exchanges provided, allowing her to connect with someone without the vulnerability that often accompanied face-to-face interactions. In the dim light of the library, she crafted heartfelt replies that echoed with poetic beauty, her mind racing with possibilities for what might come next. The anonymity surrounding their exchange added to its allure. There were no expectations or pressures, just pure connection born out of shared literary passion. Daniel's ghosts mingled with Sophie's thoughts as they played off each other's ideas, exploring themes that resonated within both their lives. For Sophie, it was as if Daniel had unearthed parts of herself she had tucked away for too long, the dreams and desires hidden beneath layers of introversion. Sophie soon realized that each note felt like a bridge between their worlds, a space where both could reveal their innermost selves without fear of judgment or rejection. This sacred sanctuary nurtured their growing affinity while simultaneously deepening the mystery surrounding their identities. Yet beneath the enchanting surface lay an unshakable question. Who was this mystery man who so effortlessly captured her thoughts? And what would happen when their anonymous dance finally collided with reality? As Daniel and Sophie continued their exchange of notes, a rich tapestry of ideas and emotions began to weave itself through their written conversations. Each new message felt like a thread connecting their hearts and minds, bridging the physical distance that separated them. They explored profound themes, art, love, solitude, and the intricacies of human connection, each note revealing insights that resonated deeply with the other. Daniel was captivated by Sophie's intellect and her ability to articulate thoughts that mirrored his own struggles. In her responses, he found reflections of himself. Her quotes often spoke to his heartaches and aspirations, echoing the sentiments he had tucked away since his retreat into anonymity. It was as if their souls were conversing in a language only they could understand, transcending the confines of mere words on paper. For Sophie, each note became a window into Daniel's mind. She relished in the challenge of deciphering his poetic musings and was often surprised by the emotional depth he conveyed, a depth she hadn't encountered before in casual interactions. She developed a sense of intimacy with him that surpassed anything she had ever experienced in person. The library, once just a place for her work, transformed into an enchanted realm where their thoughts intertwined like vines growing around sturdy trellises. Their intellectual compatibility blossomed within this sanctuary of silence. They were both unafraid to delve into difficult topics or express vulnerability in their writing. Conversations flowed seamlessly from literary discussions to personal revelations, and both found themselves yearning for more than just ink on pages. As they exchanged ideas about favorite novels or debated the motivations behind beloved characters, it fostered a sense of ease between them. However, beneath this enchanting dialogue lay an undeniable tension, a growing desire to meet face to face and see if their written chemistry translated into reality. While Sophie's heart raced at the thought of what might come next, Daniel's fear lingered. Would she still see him as worthy if she knew his true identity? The allure of anonymity cast a shadow on their romance even as it allowed them to reveal their innermost selves without restraint. Despite this uncertainty, each note brought them closer together emotionally, highlighting not just what connected them, but also what made them unique individuals searching for understanding. As they penned their feelings onto pages that forever entwined their experiences, both Daniel and Sophie began contemplating how to bridge the divide between written expression and real-world connection, a leap that could either solidify or shatter everything they had built together among the library shelves. As Daniel and Sophie continued to share their thoughts through the margins of borrowed books, the atmosphere between them shifted, charged with an unspoken tension that hinted at deeper feelings. Each note conveyed not just the ideas they exchanged, but also subtle undercurrents of affection that neither had initially acknowledged. Their correspondence became a delicate dance, a blend of intellectual stimulation and emotional resonance. Sophie found herself blushing at his words, her heart racing in a way it hadn't in years. The poetry he wrote spoke to her in ways that transcended mere admiration. It awakened feelings she had kept dormant for too long. With each note, she sensed a warmth blossoming within her chest, one that filled the quiet void of her solitary life. There was something intoxicating about sharing such intimate thoughts while remaining anonymous. It felt safe and liberating all at once. Daniel, too, felt the stirrings of vulnerability as he penned his notes. He had crafted them carefully, choosing each word with precision, yet he couldn't shake the growing desire to express more than just poetic musings. He yearned to reveal his true self, the man behind the words, but fear held him back like a tether pulling at his heart. Would Sophie still feel the same if she knew who he truly was? The risk seemed monumental, yet so did the potential reward of their connection transforming into something tangible. Their written exchanges took on an almost romantic quality. Each line was imbued with longing and curiosity. Daniel often found himself daydreaming about Sophie as he walked through town after leaving the library, picturing her reactions to his latest notes. Would she chuckle softly at his quips or ponder deeply over his reflections? Meanwhile, Sophie would linger on Daniel's words long after reading them, replaying them in her mind as if they were melodies composed just for her. Yet even amid this burgeoning affection lay a sense of trepidation. Both felt the weight of their anonymity increasingly heavy as it became clear that their connection transcended mere friendship. Each was slowly unearthing desires that went beyond the safety net of their literary exchanges. They were caught in a beautiful paradox, craving more while simultaneously cherishing the protection that anonymity afforded them. As they navigated this intricate web of emotions and expectations, both Daniel and Sophie began to grapple with the question looming just beyond their notes. Could they transform this enchanting correspondence into a real-world relationship? The answer remained elusive, yet with every exchange, they grew more aware that something profound was unfolding between them, something that would ultimately challenge both their hearts and their identities when they finally took that leap into reality. As the poetic exchanges between Daniel and Sophie continued, Sophie began to note subtle clues that hinted at a deeper connection than she had initially imagined. There were references in Daniel's notes that resonated with her own experiences, details about her favorite books, shared sentiments about lonely nights spent surrounded by stories, and even hints of places in town where she liked to escape. Each revelation sent ripples of curiosity through her mind, compelling her to piece together the puzzle that was her mysterious correspondent. One afternoon, while shelving returned books in the library, Sophie stumbled upon a title that Daniel had referred to in his notes. Curiously flipping through its pages, she found a quote he had mentioned, followed closely by a note he had left for her. The familiarity of the sentiment sent a shiver down her spine. It was as if his spirit lingered between the lines, echoing back to her own thoughts. Suddenly, an unsettling realization took root. What if Daniel was not just a stranger? What if he was someone from her own life? Doubt crept into Sophie's heart as fragments of memories surfaced, stories floating in the corners of her mind featuring authors she admired who might have crossed paths with Daniel. Could it be possible that this enigmatic writer was a familiar face in town? She felt both exhilarated and frustrated by the ambiguity surrounding their connection. The fear of unearthing Daniel's true identity ignited apprehension within her. What if he turned out to be someone entirely unexpected? As days passed, Sophie's suspicions grew stronger with each note they exchanged. Her pencil hovered over the paper as she crafted responses filled with playful questions and softly veiled inquiries about his life. Beneath her words lay a deeper desperation, not just for answers but also for reassurance. If Daniel was indeed connected to her world, would this complicate the enchantment that thrived within their anonymity? Caught between the thrill of possibility and the dread of betrayal, Sophie found herself yearning for clarity while simultaneously cherishing their secret realm of connection. She wanted to embrace whatever feelings had blossomed between them, but could only see them through the lens of anonymity and longing. With each passing interaction, tension mounted. There was beauty in their exchange, yet undercurrents of uncertainty began to cloud Sophie's mind. Would their blossoming romance endure if they stepped out from behind the veil of mystery? Each note brought more questions than answers as she stood at an emotional crossroads, teetering on the edge between desire and fear, all while unknowingly drawing closer to discovering who Daniel really was amidst their literary tapestry. The realization struck Sophie like a thunderclap, shattering the delicate world she had built with Daniel through their secret exchanges. While perusing a book in the library one dreary afternoon, she stumbled upon a passage that felt achingly familiar. It was a sentence she recognized from one of Daniel's notes, but now it was published as part of a fictional narrative, one that mirrored their own conversations, capturing their shared thoughts and emotions in a way that felt both beautiful and deeply invasive. As she read on, the initial thrill of recognizing his writing soon turned to a crushing weight in her chest. The realization that Daniel was using their private correspondence as inspiration for his new novel filled her with conflicting emotions. On one hand, the artistry of his words resonated with her heart. On the other, an overwhelming sense of betrayal washed over her. The intimacy they had cultivated through their notes now felt exploitative, as if he had taken the most vulnerable parts of their connection and woven them into fiction without her consent. Sophie felt her trust waver. What had begun as a tender romance blossoming through poetry now seemed tainted by the fear that Daniel viewed their exchanges merely as material for his next bestseller rather than genuine expressions of affection. Would he have shared these feelings with her if he hadn't been inspired to write? Did he care for her as a person or simply as a muse? The questions spiraled in her mind, each one leading back to an emotional crossroads she never wanted to reach. That evening, Sophie sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by crumpled paper and half-finished notes to Daniel. She grappled with how to articulate her feelings, knowing that each word carried the weight of her disappointment and confusion. Her heart ached for the connection they had shared, but now felt irrevocably altered. Determined to confront him, she finally penned a note filled with both admiration and heartache, expressing how deeply his words had struck her while questioning the nature of their relationship. Would he understand the pain behind her revelations? Would he acknowledge the lines he had crossed in blending their reality with fiction? The tension between them thickened as Sophie prepared to send this note into the void, where it would either bridge the gap between them or deepen the chasm of mistrust. With every moment that passed, she felt an undeniable pull, a desire not just to reclaim what had been lost, but also to understand whether Daniel's love for her transcended mere inspiration for art. The journey ahead promised uncertainty, but Sophie was ready to confront whatever truth lay hidden within the pages of their intertwined lives. The weight of Sophie's revelation hung heavily over Daniel as he sat alone in his small apartment, the glow of his laptop screen illuminating the pages of the manuscript he had been crafting. The words that once flowed so freely now felt tainted by a sense of guilt and betrayal. He had dug deep into their intimate exchanges to find inspiration, but now he questioned if he had crossed an invisible line between art and exploitation. Determined to prove that his feelings for Sophie were genuine, Daniel knew he needed to take action, not just in words but through bold gestures that would lay bare his heart. He spent restless nights contemplating how to express the depth of his affection while also acknowledging the pain he had inadvertently caused her. Writing poetry was one thing, but showing vulnerability in front of the woman who had come to mean so much to him was an entirely different challenge. One evening, after much soul-searching, Daniel decided on a plan. He revisited the library, the sanctuary where their connection had begun, and chose a book filled with their shared favorite quotes. As he thumbed through its pages, he carefully selected passages that mirrored their relationship and the myriad emotions that accompanied it. With trembling hands, he began writing a heartfelt letter to Sophie, fully ready to reveal not just his true identity, but also the essence of what she meant to him. Daniel envisioned this letter nestled between the pages of the book, a tangible symbol of his sincerity. He wanted her to see beyond the words of fiction into the reality of his emotions. In it, he poured out his fears and hopes, articulating how their correspondence had awakened something within him far more meaningful than mere inspiration for stories. He expressed that Sophie was not just a muse. She was an integral part of his journey toward rediscovering passion and purpose in both writing and life. As dawn approached, Daniel made his way back to the library with determination in his step. Each heartbeat echoed a mix of anxiety and hope as he placed the book on the shelf where they first exchanged notes, their secret meeting ground transformed into a stage for earnestness. He wondered how Sophie would respond when she discovered this letter, whether she would feel relief or skepticism at seeing him step out from behind anonymity. Would this act bridge the chasm that had formed between them or deepen her distrust? With each passing moment, Daniel felt an undeniable conviction. Love might have started as fiction between them, but it was time for it to become a reality and prove itself in every sense, an honest extension of what they had created together amidst those library shelves. As Daniel awaited Sophie's response to his heartfelt letter, anticipation gripped him like a vice. He spent hours pacing the aisles of the library, his mind racing with scenarios, each one more hopeful yet fraught with anxiety than the last. Would she understand the depth of his intentions? Would she feel validated or further betrayed? The weight of their relationship hung heavily in the air, and he knew this moment would determine their future. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Sophie entered the library and approached the same shelf where he had left the letter. Her fingers hesitated over the book, and Daniel's breath caught in his throat as he watched her expression shift from curiosity to surprise, then to something deeper as she began reading. He could see her cheeks flush as she turned pages, revealing the very words that reflected his heart. When she finally looked up, he took a step forward, ready to bridge the gap that had formed between them. "Sophie," he began softly, his voice barely above a whisper, "I wanted you to know how much you mean to me, how real everything we've shared is." Her eyes met his with an intensity that sent shivers down his spine. "But you used it all for your story," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. "What does that say about us?" Daniel's heart sank at the hurt in her voice. It was a stark reminder of how they stood at a crossroads. "I thought I could combine my art with genuine emotion," he explained urgently. "But I've come to realize that while inspiration can begin in fiction, true love cannot be confined by it. What I wrote stems from my feelings for you, feelings I never intended to exploit." Sophie looked at him skeptically but remained silent, searching for clarity amid her turmoil. Understanding the stakes, Daniel took a bold step forward. "Let me show you that my love is not just ink on paper. It transcends any novel I could ever write." With determination in his heart, he proposed an idea. They should embark on their own story together, a narrative unfiltered by fictional constraints. He offered her a chance to become co-authors of their future rather than mere characters in his past tale. "Let's create our own adventure, one where we are both vulnerable and honest," he urged. The tension between them shifted as Sophie considered his words. There was solace in their possibility amidst chaos. Slowly, a small smile crept onto her lips, a sign of hope mingled with uncertainty flickering in her gaze. In that moment of connection, Daniel understood that love indeed can inspire art, but it must also be nurtured with honesty and vulnerability. Their story was not about exploiting emotions, but embracing them fully. Together, they would write a narrative grounded in sincerity and understanding, a lasting testament to what true love could be when free of illusion and filled with reality. In the days that followed their heartfelt confrontation, Daniel and Sophie began to navigate the complexities of their relationship with newfound clarity. No longer shrouded in the mists of anonymity, they embarked on a journey that intertwined their realities with the creativity that had initially drawn them together. With each conversation, they slowly dismantled the walls that had formed between them, embracing both vulnerability and trust. As they shared their experiences, hopes, and fears, Daniel realized the transformative power of love. Where once he saw Sophie as a muse, he now understood she was an equal partner in this dance between reality and fiction. a co-author crafting their story not just through words, but through shared moments and genuine affection. He took Sophie to the spots in town that had inspired his writing. The old oak tree under which he had spent countless hours sketching out ideas, the coffee shop where he first found comfort in a steaming cup while contemplating life, and the secluded park bench where they could sit and talk without interruption. Their mutual passion for literature blossomed further as they explored new genres together, attending local book readings and sharing insights about their favorite novels. With every page they turned, their connection deepened, illustrating that creativity thrived best when nurtured by sincerity and emotional depth. They started to blend the lines of their past experiences with future aspirations, transforming the essence of what they had once kept separate. However, amid this blossoming romance lay challenges. They both wrestled with doubts stemming from their individual vulnerabilities. Daniel feared that his past as a successful author might overshadow their relationship, while Sophie grappled with insecurities about her worth beyond being a character in someone else's story. Yet together, they learned to confront these feelings head-on, fostering an environment ripe for honesty. Eventually, they decided to collaborate on a new project, writing a novel together that reflected their shared journey. This venture became not only a creative outlet for their love, but also a testament to their commitment to each other. They poured their hearts into the pages, capturing both the beauty of their romance and the lessons learned from overcoming obstacles. As they filled the manuscript with words that encapsulated the essence of their relationship, Daniel and Sophie discovered a profound truth. Love has the power to inspire creativity, but it must also be rooted in authenticity and mutual respect. Through this process of blending reality with fiction, they crafted not only a story that honored their unique connection, but also forged a bond that would resonate long beyond the final period of their shared narrative. Their love story was no longer just about art imitating life. It became life itself, vibrant, messy, unpredictable, and undeniably real.